This shell is called a Tiger Lucine, and I absolutely love them for carving because of how much contrast they have when you polish certain sections. If you look at the stingray that I carved, you can really see how much the textured image pops out against the smooth polished background. Another reason that I love them is the surprising amount of color that lies just under the pure white surface. Now take a look at this heron I'm working on, and you can really see how much of that purple tone comes out the deeper you carve. Using this to my advantage, I'm going to do something a bit different in this video. Now that I have a template drawn out, it's time to grab a shell, and it's important to pick one that's in pretty good shape and doesn't have any internal cracks because it can potentially fall apart as you grind further down into it. Don't ask me how I know that. You also want to grab a shell that is fairly similar size to your template just to minimize the amount of wasted space and shell, as the shell is going to be getting cut up, and the less unusable scrap, the better. If I go ahead and flip the shell over, you can see how deep the purples and pinks are, and that's going to be very important for what I'm planning on doing. So to maximize the amount of color, I'm actually going to glue on my template upside down from how I would normally do it, and you'll see why later. So from here, you're going to brush on some glue. I'll be using wood glue because it's what I have on hand, but really any glue will work. You'll also want a small piece of foam because it will really push the paper down around the textured surface so you aren't left with any voids. On one of my previous videos, someone asked me if I could demonstrate how to work shells underwater, so I thought this project would be a perfect example. Just fill any Tupperware that is deep enough to submerge the piece and dip it regularly as you work. You can even leave the shell just below the surface and work it completely submerged. Trust me when I say have a rag handy. That first step was just to thin the shell so that it's easier to cut the shape out and show you what color you have to work with. I just realized that I didn't explain this beforehand. Next, you want to use some of this. This is cyanoacrylate, or CA glue, which is literally just super glue. When it hardens, it's essentially plastic, and one of the downsides to working your piece underwater is that your paper template is really not going to hold up very long. So at this step, and totally not because I forgot to do it earlier, you want to put a thin coat of the CA glue over all of the paper, which is actually going to make your template waterproof. Try to make sure that none of the glue goes under your template, which admittedly can be hard to do as the glue has the consistency of water, because it will make it harder to remove the paper when you're done. Don't worry too much if it does though, you can get the glue to release with acetone or a nail polish remover. Alright, so now that the turtle is cut out, here's the basic game plan. I'm going to come in with diamond burrs to cut along each of these lines, so basically just redrawing the pattern except with diamond cutting bits. And make sure not to cut through the shell, we just want to scribe out these lines. I'll probably do most of it with this diamond cutoff wheel and a couple different bits for the tighter spots. I'm then going to smooth out all of the turtle skin and leave the shell textured, and I'm hoping it comes out looking well. So I know in my first video I promised there would be more than just tutorials, and I promise there will be, but this is what I'm dealing with right now. Montana winter is in full swing, kinda hard to go and record when you can't really do anything. But I guess on the bright side, at least the animals have adapted to the unrelenting snow. It would seem that the field mice have taken up skiing. Alright, so now that I have all of my lines scribed out, I can start leveling out the body and flippers to create some contrast in texture and color. I'm going to use this bit because the flat tip will really help me get right up against the shell and get a nice sharp edge, which is going to be really important once I get the color to start coming out. I just wanted to stop here for a moment so you could get a good example of what I've been talking about this whole time. You can really see how much of that color is starting to come out, and the difference in texture really is going to make its shell stand out well. So from here I can start leveling out his big flipper and recess the shoulder to add some depth. I'm to this point, I'm going to wet sand the smooth areas with 400 grit, then 800 grit, and then 2000 grit sandpaper, and follow up with some buffing compound. Well, here it is, and it actually came out exactly how I wanted it to. You can use these steps with just about any design and any shell. I just chose Lucine and a turtle because they work perfectly to display a good example. I know that it will unfortunately be a while before I can really make any Montana videos like fossil hunting, rock hounding, or hiking, but I'll be going to Florida for 2 weeks on March 24th, so look out for some fishing videos, maybe a few projects, and a whole lot of shelling, and more.